Well, hello. It is Tuesday evening. I am trying to make a recording of the book that we read today called Owl Moon. As you can see, it's dark outside, so it's a good time to read this. And I'm sorry I'm posting this quite late. This is the best opportunity I've had. But anyway, let's get to the book. Now remember that it is important to pay attention to the setting. We're talking a lot about setting now. And when we write stories about something that happens, we want to say what the setting is because the setting does affect what happens in the story. The book that we read, Big Owl, couldn't take place in the desert because Big Owl is a fish. The story that we read about Ruby Bridges couldn't take place today because the same things wouldn't be happening. So when we read this book, The Owl Moon, we know some things are really important for the story. We know that the time of day is important for the story. If it was daytime, we couldn't be talking about the moon. And we wouldn't be talking about owls because owls are nocturnal and they usually come out at night. So it's really important to understand how much the setting can affect a story. So I wanted to mention that the author is Jane Yolen. And the really amazing thing about this book, in addition to the illustrations, which is why it has won a medal, but the descriptions of the setting are very, very detailed, and they often use our senses, like what it sounded like or what it felt like, or in one case, even kind of what it tasted like. So her words appeal to our senses. And so when we write our own stories, we want to use words to describe a setting that appeal to our senses. What does it feel like where you are? What does it look like? Even maybe what it sounds like. So I want you to pay attention to those things as I'm reading Owl Moon. It was late one winter night. So we know the season and we know the time of day. Long past my bedtime, when Pa and I went owling. There was no wind. The trees stood still as giant statues, and the moon was so bright the sky seemed to shine. Somewhere behind us a train whistle blew, something you can hear, long and low, like a sad, sad song. And I'm not sure if you saw it when I was reading the book, but there's the father and the child. Okay. I could hear it through the woolen cap Pa had pulled down on my ears. A farm dog answered the train, and then a second dog joined in. They sang out, trains and dogs, for a real long time. And when their voices faded away, it was as quiet as a dream. We walked on towards the woods, Pa and I. So you notice again how her description touches your senses. So here is the snowy, wintry time that they are out, and there's the child and the father. And I am sorry for the way the lighting is in here. Our feet crunched over the crisp snow, and little gray footprints followed us. Pa made a long shadow, but mine was short and round. I had to run after him every now and then to keep up, and my short round shadow bumped after me. So here we go. There's the footprints that she's describing, the little gray footprints. There's the shadow of the dad, and there's the shadow of the little girl or little boy. I still haven't figured out what it is. And there's the trees, the bare trees of the winter. But I never called out. if you go owling, you have to be quiet. That's what Pa always says. I had been waiting to go owling with Pa for a long, long time. We reached the line of pine trees, black and pointy against the sky, and Pa held up his hand. I stopped right where I was and waited. He looked up, as if searching the stars, as if reading a map up there. The moon made his face into a silver mask. Then he called, "Ooh, ooh, 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 ooh," the sound of a great horned owl. Ooh, 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 ooh. So, there's the dad, and his face has got the moonlight on it, so it looks very white. There's the child. And again, we're surrounded by a lot of snow, and it's winter time. Again he called out, and then again. After each call, he was silent, and for a moment we both listened. But there was no answer. Pa shrugged, and I shrugged. I was not disappointed. My brothers all said sometimes there's an owl, and sometimes there isn't. So, as we said, or as somebody pointed out, there is actually an animal in this tree, but it is not an owl. It is a raccoon. All right. And there they are, looking for an owl that they could not find. We walked on. I could feel the cold, as if someone's icy hand was palmed down on my back. So again, she's creating the setting by helping you to sense how she's feeling, or he's feeling very cold. And my nose and the tops of my cheeks felt cold and hot at the same time. But I never said a word. If you go owling, you have to be quiet and make your own heat. You see all of the white snow, and as somebody pointed out, it looks almost like the sky is during the day because the moon was so bright. We went into the woods. The shadows were the blackest things I had ever seen. Again, she's describing the setting. They stained the white snow. My mouth felt furry, for the scarf over it was wet and warm. I didn't ask what kinds of things hide behind black trees in the middle of the night. When you go owling, you have to be brave. So here they go again, on their way, walking through the woods in the snow, because it's winter time. Then we came to a clearing in the dark woods. The moon was high above us. It seemed to fit exactly over the center of the clearing, and the snow below it was whiter than the milk in a cereal bowl. So she's describing how clean and white that snow looks. We see the snow on the tree branches, and they're surrounded by trees, and this is the clearing where there's no trees. I sighed, and Pa held up his hand at the sound. I put my mittens over the scarf over my mouth and listened hard. And then Pa called, "Ooh, ooh, 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 ooh." I listened and looked so hard my ears hurt and my eyes got cloudy with the cold. Pa raised his face to call out again, but before he could open his mouth, an echo came threading its way through the trees. Ooh, 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 ooh. Oops, I'm sorry. There's the picture of the dad making his owl call, and the little girl kind of trying to keep from making any noise herself. Pa almost smiled. because now he heard an owl. Then he called back, "Hoo, hoo, 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 hoo," just as if he and the owl were talking about supper, or about the woods, or the moon, or the cold. I took my mitten off the scarf off my mouth, and I almost smiled too. So they're looking, but we can't quite see what they're looking at. The way the author is describing things, you can almost feel the cold air. You can see the moon and all those things. The owl's call came closer, from high up in the trees. Nothing in the meadow moved. All of a sudden, an owl shadow, part of the big tree lifted, an owl shadow, part of the big tree shadow, lifted off and flew right over us. We watched silently with heat in our mouths and the heat of all those words we had not spoken. The shadow hooted again. So I tried to show this picture earlier. There's the wings of the owl flying up above them, and there they are. Pa turned on his big flashlight and caught the owl just as it was landing on a branch. For 1 minute, 3 minutes, maybe even 100 minutes, we stared at one another. Then the owl pumped its great wings and lifted off the branch like a shadow, without a sound. It flew back into the forest. "Time to go home," Pa said to me. I knew then I could talk. I could even laugh out loud. But I was a shadow as we walked home. There's the owl flying off. Here's the dad with his flashlight. So now they got to see their owl. When you go owling, you don't need words or warm or anything but hope. That's what Pa says. The kind of hope that flies on silent wings under a shining owl moon. There they go on their way home. Okay. So once again, in this particular story, the setting is so very important. It wouldn't work at any other time. It wouldn't work well in any other weather. So it's important that you remember all the details of that setting as you try to create your own settings. All right. Bye.